Welcome to Undressing Intimacy, where we cut through the bullshit
Greggy,
so we can get naked.
you can't say that.
Why not? How would you say it then?
Well, maybe more like, welcome to Undressing Intimacy, where we undress emotionally so we can undress physically.
That's exactly what I said. Not sure what the problem is. Episode number 8.
8 is great.
All right. I'm actually a little nervous about this one, babe.
Really? Why are you nervous?
Yeah, because I think we're going to delve in and talk about something that maybe I don't have everything resolved in my own mind. So being open and honest might cause things to come out that I'm not ready for. But I know it's important to talk about, so I'm willing to do it.
All right, I'm in.
We had the opportunity, and we do oftentimes, where I travel. But this time it was quite a distance away.
Yes.
I ended up doing the world down under. I was in Australia for a week, which caused me to fly out late on a Friday. I lost a whole day. I don't know where my Saturday went, because when I landed, it was Sunday. And I got to spend a week there in Australia and then fly back home. We've worked really, really hard in our marriage because this is oftentimes the most difficult part for us.
Yes.
And I think maybe it's a microcosm of the relationship really intensified at one period of time. You know what I'm saying? Because all the things that we struggle with, I think, come up in a heavy level, a high level.
You think the travel exposes
Yeah, that's a better way of
our
saying
patterns?
It exposes our patterns and sees how good we really think we are. When we think we have things under control, it definitely puts it to its limits and tests.
It's sort of like the pressure cooker that tests.
Yep, absolutely. It is the pressure cooker test. So I was determined this time, knowing that I was going to be on the other side of the world, to try to stay connected to you. And we've learned to do several things that have helped in that area. The number one thing, as we always seem to want to do, is our emotion connections we've talked about in the past. Even the fact that the time difference makes it a little difficult, because you're asleep while I'm awake and vice versa. But we always make sure that if I wake up, I'll have a little text message that will list all of your emotions during the day. And I'll respond back to that. And that really seems to help, because I think in the past, and you can talk about a little about it, you felt like I got so busy working that there was no connection at all while I was away.
Well, truth be told, I used to think you were on vacation.
That's true. She told me I was going on vacation.
And I was at home doing the work, and the work got harder doing it alone. I would call it single mom or flying alone. And so it seemed like you suddenly had a lot of permission and freedom, and you often had a lot of activities when you were traveling that were like fun or expensive that at the time we couldn't do. And then mine got harder. So there was not only lack of emotional connection, but there seemed to be a lack of privilege and freedom too. Like those went to extremes.
Yeah, so I invite you anytime to go hang out with clients and peers all day.
No, I know that's not true, but it was the appearance of, you could sit in a hotel room and watch or be or do whatever you want to do. And here I was like trying to get all these kids to bed, and they weren't sleeping, and they were tantruming. And
yeah, definitely a different challenge. And for the spouse that's away on travel, it's a little hopeless and helpless too, right? Because you can't help, and you have to rely on that. We're not quite in that situation anymore.
No,
the way we're at.
Kids are much bigger now.
I try to bring you on as many trips as I can, so
that
we can enjoy each other's time together. But I really think one of the key elements that have really helped us is having our emotional check-in all the time. Trying to talk and call to each other, even if it was me on lunch and you going to bed. That's kind of the time difference. It got worse when I went to Perth, which is on the other side of Australia.
It was 16 hours different,
even different than that. So,
or 17, or anyways.
Lots of struggles there. But I was determined to stay connected. And so the first day I got there, when we had our emotions, I was pretty open and raw about some of the things that I saw and dealt with. And I was pretty vulnerable. I wasn't sure where I was going to go. I'm still not sure if we've resolved this one or not. Interesting, down in Australia this time of year, it's summertime, which is opposite of here. It's going into summertime. And so I got the opportunity to walk around the botanical gardens there in Melbourne. And there was a lot of beautiful sights, plants, buildings, a lovely place. But one of the things I found myself noticing was there was also a lot of young women walking around the park, and it seemed to have bra optional clothing on. And it brought it to my attention. I think in the past I would have never mentioned this to you, but trying to be really open and honest and stay connected, it was something I noticed. And so I brought it up to you on a call. Do you remember this?
I do remember it.
What did it trigger in you?
I don't know if trigger's the right word. What did it bring up in me? I appreciated your honesty. I was curious about what that experience was like for you and what it created in you. I wanted to understand more about what it's like to be a man versus being a woman, or maybe another way to say it is what it looks like in your desire versus mine. If I don't want to be too generalized, but I wanted to understand what that experience meant to you, if it made it difficult for you, if it brought you closer to me, if it brought up challenges for you, or if it was a way for us to connect. And so I think I was a little bit concerned. I think I was curious, and I think I was grateful.
Yeah, I think even some of the language that we have around it that we get stuck in, you first ask me like, oh, is this a challenge for you, or is this hard for you? And my first answer is usually a smart ass answer now, because I that used to be code word to like, did you choose me?
Yes.
Are you looking at other women and not me? And so, I know that there was probably a smart ass answer that came along with that, but what I was trying to figure out and get my arms wrapped around, and maybe I don't have complete understanding for, but maybe we can talk it out here in the broad daylight of our audience, is
lovely.
That wasn't a challenge for me in per se. It's not like it sent me to go look at pornography or anything like that. It was something I noticed, and it triggered some desires for you. I know there was even a text message later on that talked about that with you. But we got caught up in this conversation. It was a struggle, and we don't know if we really have the answer for it, because in your mind, you're like, can't fathom why me seeing something else that could be sexual would actually trigger anything good between us or our desires. And that's kind of where we got stuck.
Right. I wanted to know the connection. So I think for you, it was probably a little bit desirable or arousing to be in that context or circumstance. And yet that brought you connected to me in your mind. And I was curious as to why, because I think sometimes for me, if I see something that is sexual outside of us, it doesn't necessarily bring me closer to you. And so I was just trying to understand how that experience of seeing, all of these braless women brought you closer to me, and how that was working for you. I wanted to be able to understand that connection, because that's not really a connection that happens for me.
Yeah, and it was a question that I don't know if I really necessarily had an answer right away to, and put a lot of thought in, and I don't know if I even really have the answer today. I said to something to the effect, it doesn't make me want to go have sex with all those women that I walk by. It's not something like that. So I know that was pretty clear, but it's something that I noticed before, and I would probably have been ashamed of noticing before, and I didn't want to be ashamed of noticing, and that's why I brought it up. And so I want to be completely honest, and don't want to make things up and say, oh yeah, every time I see boobs, it makes me closer to you. And I don't think that's the truth, but I don't think the truth lies ever on the other side too. Like, every time I see boobs, I want those and not yours. So I don't know where the truth lies. I think that's what I've been wrestling with for a while, is how can we take this sexual desire that's normal, something that we used to fight off and try to ignore, which was not good. We always talk about that usually comes out sideways, and it does. How do I recognize and understand it and be okay with it and have some good from it instead of burying it and having it come out sideways. And I don't think that's where I guess I'm being vulnerable in this, because I don't know if I have the complete answer. So any ideas?
Well, I think as we were talking about this, what you noticed was that you are very attuned into sexual experiences, and that's what you share with me. And so that being in that context, in that place, brought up those feelings, and it reminded you of our interactions, and you turned them towards us. So I think there was a choice made there, that you were able to take that context and bring it towards us. I appreciated your honesty. I appreciated your desire to connect. And also I think where we got is to say, and for some people that may not be the case.
Yeah, I definitely think it's not the case for you, right? And I know that's a little bit around what we've talked about before, the contextualism around sexuality and how women need a context around it to be aroused and have desire. But then that doesn't make a lot of sense along with me, is like, how can, because this situation seems to have a contextual reason for me to want to come towards you, but I'm not sure why.
And maybe we don't have to know why, we just have to know what.
Yeah. Talk about that a little more.
Well, I don't know that we always understand, for example, all of our fantasies or all of our desires. I don't know that we'll ever have answers around all of them. And so I think there is some acceptance to just, this is my experience, and here's how I want to integrate it so that it is for our goodness and for creating what you desire. And what you desire is for connection in our relationship. Like you said, you went on this trip with the intention of creating connection and living true to that intention. When you were in an experience that could have gone a lot of different ways, you turned it towards us instead of away from us.
Yeah.
And that was a what, right?
Yeah, I agree with that. I think for us higher desire partners, we got to be careful not to justify bad behavior too, right? And I try not to do that. But I definitely know in this case, being brave enough to bring it up to you was important. Being able to stand on my own and say what it wasn't, right? Because the first reaction was, oh, is this hard for you? What is this causing for you? You even talked about there was a little fear that was brought up with it. And I think I was able to stand and say, no, that's not it. Let's talk about this a little more. And that was probably the most important thing that came out of this little exercise.
Yeah, I think that we don't have to have the same experience. And even if it did bring up an experience that I'm not familiar with, I can be curious as to how you interacted with it and what you were trying to do and create and be and experience.
How do you do that? Because it was such a difference before. If I would have brought this up maybe even 2 years ago or less, this would have meant so much more to you in a different way than it does today. What allows you to have a different context around it?
I think what allows me to have a different context is that I don't try to manage you, and that you don't have to be a certain way for me to be okay. I think that I understand you have your own self and your own selfhood, and it's your journey and joy to integrate your sexuality, and that's your choice and your agency. I also have the same. I don't have to understand everything about you or about me. There are parts of me I don't fully understand yet. And so I'm not trying to make you a certain way so that I can be okay. I'm not trying to make circumstances be a certain way so that I'm okay. I think that control or need for things to, like, I don't need you to be everything for me to be okay. I know that I also am not everything for you, and you're going to be okay. Like, there's a letting go, maybe some expectations, management, control, and alongside of that, anxiety. Of course, it's okay to have some anxiety sometimes. I'm not saying that we live without it. but I think I've just learned to be more okay in being me. I also think that I can see, maybe map, that you really are choosing to be the best version of you that you can be. And I'm trying to do that. So I don't need to insert myself or my, I don't know, agenda into your life.
No, I think that's really real. I think that's what's been coming up as you've been talking here, is that because you've done the hard work to understand your desires and your sexuality, and you stepped into that, you're no longer in a servicing place. And when you're in a servicing place, then you want to control everything, right? Because you're servicing and making sure I'm okay. And that's the whole reason you have sexuality. I think knowing that you have your own and you stepped into that allows you to step back and to listen in a different light. Allows me to step up and speak in a different way, and bring things up that I never would bring. And that causes, in the end, true intimacy, right? Because you knew me in that very moment of something that I may have been embarrassed or tried to hide in the past. You knew.
I could see the honesty of it. I don't think there was any manipulation or control or anything behind it. So in that point, it was just, let me get to know you better and understand you better. And there wasn't a desire to make you a certain way. It was just, let me try and understand what is for you.
And with that openness, it allowed me to also question my own intentions and thoughts. And, again, I try not to justify things and bad behaviors. And so I want to be a better person. And so with your honesty and openness and asking more curious questions about it, I really definitely felt it brought up some more opportunity for me to grow and understand my own sexuality. And maybe was there something I was missing or didn't understand? And I think that's where I was a little nervous, is because it brought up maybe some of those uncertainties in myself, and I had to question them.
I think that's actually really healthy. Whenever we expose something in ourselves, it does give us a chance to look more deeply and to see who we are and how, are we pointed in the direction of what we want to create and be. And I also am thinking of your last question. I was so insecure before that I needed to be your everything and your all. And from that space, it is really difficult to hear anything other than, you're everything I've ever wanted. And so I think I am more familiar. I'm more okay to be me. And I know that I have some very real flaws.
Well,
and that's okay.
Yeah, I also think, we talked about in our last episode some of the things you've went through yourself, where you couldn't even acknowledge the beauty of the human body in yourself, yet alone another person. I mean, I distinctly remember walking down the beaches and you being horrified and wanting to cover my eyes up, and how uncomfortable
again, because managing you felt like it would make me okay.
Right.
But that's really one of the biggest lies ever.
And why we don't go around seeking it out, we can at least acknowledge each other beauty and others in a physical way, right? Where we couldn't before. And I think all that, again, allowed me to bring something to you I wouldn't have brought to you. And I really did bring it to you because I went really, really determined to stay connected with you. And this is something that I felt like I could have dismissed, but I wanted to have that discussion with you. And I appreciate you not being judgmental and giving me what you call the soft space to land. Even when I make mistakes and do something that I'm not proud of, if I can bring that to you and it's not in a judgmental place and there's a soft place to be, it really allows us to get to know and want to be each other's soft place to land.
And you're also a soft place for me.
Yeah, I'm trying to work on that.
He's rubbing his belly. No, not that kind of soft place. A soft place emotionally, though, requires that you face your own fears and you let go of control. What we are afraid of, we try to control. And I found a lot of areas that I was trying to control you and our home and our kids and outside circumstances. And it's scary to look some of those fears directly in the face It really is. And I understand why I avoided them for so long. It makes a lot of sense. It's very uncomfortable. It's very difficult. And there's still others I'm still actively working on. I am by no means a finished product to any stretch of the imagination. But I also recognize that controlling and avoiding and managing only move us and myself farther away from where we want to be. And so even though my heart might be racing and my body is shaking and I'm feeling nervous, what I'm thinking is, but this is what I want. I'm not as weak as I think. I'm stronger than I think I am. I can tolerate the truth, even if it's somewhat scary.
So leaning into those moments.
Yeah.
Yeah, we used to run from them.
Yes.
Or I wouldn't even bring them up, so they weren't even a possibility.
Mm-hmm.
It goes back to differentiation, really, right? This is part of me. This is something I did notice that I would never have brought up before. And being able to do it in a way, like you said, it wasn't comfortable. The questions you asked me weren't comfortable. Mm-hmm. It sent me into a place where I had to dig deeper and probably ask myself harder questions, and that wasn't comfortable. So that process I didn't enjoy necessarily, but the end, I felt like it brought us closer together than further apart.
I would agree. And I think my questions, just for those listening, weren't accusatory. They really were like, tell me what this experience is like for you, and tell me what it feels like to be in your experience, and tell me how that is.
So let's get some good stuff that came out of this.
Okay. Yeah.
So that was early in the trip. That was my first stop in Melbourne. I ended up in Perth and then also in Sydney. And so because we'd gone through this in the next couple of days, I really was reflective on what I was thinking and doing. And we continued to have good conversations, both via phone calls in the middle of the day or earlier in the morning, or right when I'm trying to go to bed or you're trying to go to bed, because the time differences.
You were often, it was like 2 a.m. for you.
It was crazy. That was the crazy
so
part. But also through text messages back and forth. And we can even go back and we read a few of those before we started just to remind ourselves of what we did. But I felt this constant pull to connect and continue to be engaged. To the fact that I shocked you a little bit with a poem. Mornings, right?
It was amazing. I was like, wait, were you a hidden poet and I didn't know it?
Oh, I had to be honest about this.
It was absolutely amazing.
I went to ChatGPT, but it was a little too less spicy. So I Googled, and there was actually a chat erotic GPT. Oh, we'll try this. And man, it wrote a really good poem. Of course, it was my ideas, but it wrote a really good poem.
I was like, where have you been hiding this poet within you?
Things that we connect on a physical and a sexual level. And it was
emotional too.
But it brought the undertoning emotional parts of it. Like, I was worried when I brought to it that it was like, oh, this is going to be trash, because you think, hey, someone wrote a GPT erotic app and they're just going to spit out trash, right? And that's what I was first worried about. But it wasn't at all. Was it?
No. And you must have given it specific enough clues and prompts for our relationship to make it really pertinent and relatable and applicable. And very well written. So I was like, where's this been hiding?
So I got to tell you this story. I'm going to go back 27 years ago. I don't know, 25 years ago, a long time ago. When we were dating, I was quite the romantic.
Yes, you were.
I am hopelessly a romantic.
It's one of my favorite parts about you.
And so I had planned a date back at the beach.
Because we were living in San Diego at the time.
We were living in San Diego. This is the beach we went to on our very first date.
Coronado
Beach on Coronado Island. We sat on a bench. We can tell you the bench. In fact, you took the girls back there to sit on the bench.
In June, yep. We sat on your bench.
I packed a lunch or dinner. I can't remember. I think it was dinner time. No, it was dinner time.
It was dinner because you went and got Chinese.
I packed. Well, yeah, I guess I didn't make it dinner. I got Chinese takeout. I packed dinner. Had a blanket.
Candles.
I'd written a poem.
And music. Back then you had like boom boxes.
Oh yeah, it wasn't even Bluetooth speakers or anything.
No. It was a big old black boom box.
We're telling our age right now.
With a CD player on top.
So total romantic dinner, and I had written this poem.
Oh, but before the poem, remember that SeaWorld does their...
Well, that was right afterwards. Don't get too far ahead.
Sorry.
So you're ruining the ending here for us.
Go to the punchline.
So I'd written this poem, and it was a good poem.
Yes, it was.
But my hopeless romantic thought it would be great to take the lighter in which I lit the candles after I read this poem and light the poem on fire and never have anyone ever read it again. Now, to this day, I regret that because it was a hell of a poem. And
we don't remember
what it said. But maybe it was good because maybe it wasn't as good a poem as I'm thinking it was.
And in our memory, it will always be amazing.
Always an amazing poem. So I did have some of that with me. But the punchline, as Amy was trying to jump onto, is that we lit this poem on fire and we'd had this lunch and we were romantically dancing to the music. And as if I had paid someone on key, fireworks from SeaWorld started going off in the background.
Right in the sky, on cue, boom.
Were we married?
No.
Was dating still?
We were dating.
I'm trying to remember how many fireworks happened after that.
We were dating.
Probably more than it should, but we were just dating. But so there is some poetry in me somewhere, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so
latent for 27 years.
GPT really brought it out really well. So that was a very connecting thing, and it kept me focused on that, and that was really cool. And then the morning before the day that I came home,
mm-hmm.
I actually wrote my own.
You did.
Wasn't quite as spicy.
No.
But it was pretty good. And it talked about me coming home and wanting to be with you.
Mm-hmm.
And I really think the experience that we had, and this is what used to happen to us when I was away, just even a few days, if it wasn't across the world, we'd be so far apart that when I came home, it would be terrible.
We were distant islands.
It would take us weeks to...
Not weeks, but at least days.
Am I being dramatic?
Yeah, you're being a little dramatic.
I can be a drama queen. It'd take at least days, not hours. It was a good set of time
mm-hmm.
to even get to a point where we started connecting with each other again.
Mm-hmm.
And
I think too, we were both so tired. You were tired from travel. I was tired from kids, and we'd come to each other tired, and there was nothing left in either of us. And then the disconnect was even exacerbated in that, and each of us wanting the other person to reach, but both of us being in the stage of empty.
Right. Being the higher desire, all I wanted is to have intimate time with you and to have sex, and that would fill me back up. And you being the lower desire, that's the last thing. You didn't have anything. It would just have totally drained you, and it often ended up in a fight.
Conflict.
You know, I mean, we don't fight, but we ran away from that. But it was a conflict. And it took a conflict for us to get back together and do that. And that's how it was in the past. But that's not how this worked.
Nope.
I was all the way on the other side of the world, as far away as I think I could be from you.
It was too far, by the way.
It was a long way. And we'd had some challenges staying connected. That could have blown us up in the past with me bringing that up or anything like unto it, because you would have gone crazy and I would have gone crazy back. I probably still had my smart ass responses, which you would have got mad at and ran away, and I still need to work on that. But definitely it caused a very different response when we got home. And I really attribute that to us working hard to try to stay connected, answering some of the hard questions, digging deeper in myself than I ever dig before. And that kept me really focused on you. And thank goodness for this GTP chat thing. Maybe I'll share it sometime with everyone, or maybe on a website or something. I'll give you my secret one. But man, it was good. Whew. I think I'm getting a little sweaty just thinking about it right now. And I, even as much as I enjoyed that, I think even more proud of the poem that came straight from my heart to you. And then I had a 15-hour flight back home. And when I came back, we were close and we were connected, and that was wonderful. It did help that on the way there, I didn't fly business class. I flew regular class, and it was pretty emotionally taxing for me to be in the middle row all the way there. And so I had a little better flight on the way home. That helped, but still very tired. The days flipped, but it allowed us to still be connected when I got back.
Absolutely. So it is possible to have very different schedules, to have very different demands, to have very different circumstances and still stay connected. It is difficult. Yes, it does take intention. It does take a willingness to face some hard things. It really does. I know there's some couples where a husband or wife works at night, whether they're a nurse or a night worker or something, and the other one's working through the day. And so it's hard to find time for each other. It's hard to remember to be interested and curious and connected with another person. And it is hard. We completely validate that. But I also think with intentionality, you can find those moments, you can find those times, and you can create that connection. I think at our core, we're all creators. And when we start thinking that our circumstances in life are dictating what's happening, we are not stepping into our own creative power, our power to do and be and create. And we can use that power in relationships. And yes, we have a lot of circumstances in life, whether it's children that have different challenges or disabilities, whether it's our own health challenges or disabilities or work schedules or any number. Maybe it's in-laws, maybe it's finances. There's always possibilities of all the things it could be, right? But you also have the power to create. And I think that's what's important to hold on to. And if you're going to be a creator, you're going to have to face some of your fears, and you're going to have to be willing to see yourself honestly.
You're going to have some F-ups too.
You're going to make some mistakes. Yep.
Yeah, I hope you see that we're a hot mess. Still, very much so a hot mess still. I still struggle with being human. I haven't figured out how to be unhuman yet. But it's in that moment of being human, and instead of trying to hide from it, embracing it, because that's what makes us unique. Mm-hmm. And that's what we really love about each other, is that we are human. Mm-hmm. We're unique, and we get to know each other better than anyone else. And those quirkiness and those struggles, we know them now instead of hide from them. And so to me, that's the important part, is one, be intentional. As Amy said, you got to be intentional. Mm-hmm. This emotion sharing, I tell you, I think I beat my clients around the head with it often, but it's because it's what allows us to be intentional. And it doesn't have to look like ours in any way, or it doesn't have to look like a certain way. Like I said, when we do it, sometimes it's a long text message in the morning that I get up to. But when I wake up in the morning with a long text message, when I'm all the way around the other side of the world, that means something to me. Mm-hmm. It means that you were willing to put the effort in, probably very tired, just laying in bed, to write a lengthy text message to me that talked about your emotions. Mm-hmm. And so being intentional and doing it is so very important. And just being human. Mm-hmm. If there's one wish that I had in this world, it would be that we could be more human and be okay with it, that we could be open more in our congregations about our flaws and struggles, that we could be closer and open with our friends about our struggles, that we would have a way to put aside the need to look perfect or in a certain way. Mm-hmm. I know this is all driven by our brains thinking we need that or we won't be safe, and we have to overcome that, but it really does allow us to become close and be closer to each other. So
I think there's a very human part in all of us, right? We are in these bodies that are our containers for our physical experience, and they are innately human, and they're quirky and they're awkward and they're endearing and they're amazing, and they have these capacities and they have these challenges, and it's just like, this is the human part. But we're also divine beings, and we also carry within us light and the power to create and the power to enact change or to develop, to become. And so we're both like these messy human beings and also like these divine creators. And I don't think it's like an either or, it's recognizing both, like holding both together at the same time. Like, I am both very flawed and also very capable.
Yeah.
And I am very human, and I'm also divine.
Yes. Those two can exist together.
Yes.
And should.
Yes.
And when we dismiss one, we're actually dismissing that we are children of God.
Yes. So even if you're sharing what's human about you, it's not in this way to get attention or to be like, woe is me, or like airing your dirty laundry. It's just being real with like your authentic experience. And that allows you to connect with others. But in that realness, you're also acknowledging that you are divine and have a power to create too. So it's both.
Yeah. Well, if you are a hot mess like us, we would love
Hot Mess Express
to spend some time working with you. If you're perfect, don't reach out to us. We don't need you or want you. But please take some time to go and like and subscribe to our podcast. So we're excited and we're hoping it's going to grow more and more. And we love hearing back from you about the things that you love about it. And if you don't love about it, then just keep it to yourself. I know you can tell us that too. But we would love to have you come join us on www. You don't say www anymore. That's old. Did you notice that?
Yeah.
We just go straight to
LangfordLifeCoaching.com. There is no reason to say that because everything has www.
That went away. It's like almost hear the modem sound in my head when I say that. Yeah, there goes our age again. Come join us on LangfordLifeCoaching.com. There's a lot of resources up there that you can go to. You can see our podcast that we're talking right now here. We have some books. We have some apps. We have some blogs. And most importantly, we have this little button that says
click for a free consult.
And we would love to talk to you. So please give it a click and come be a mess with us.
It's great fun, I promise.
It is great fun. All right. Until next time.
Until next time.
Undressing your intimacy.
Let's do it.
Bye-bye.